Hi, my name is Darren Whatford. I'm the Experience Development Lead at Hastings Direct. I'm responsible for all of the brochureware pages of our website, and I'm responsible for the implementation of the Magnolia CMS solution. I've been at Hastings for just over 7 years, so I have a very good experience of front-end development, of CMS implementations, and the background of Hastings Direct.
Hi everyone, I'm Abhay. I'm a technical consultant from Precept, and we've been privileged to be working with Hastings to help them implement their headless solution using Magnolia Cloud. Precept is a leading partner for Magnolia implementation. We work mainly in the UK and in the US, and we also do a bit of work in Europe. And we've been working with Magnolia for over 10 years now. And in that time, we've been lucky enough to work with some of Magnolia's biggest customers, including, of course, Hastings Direct. Darren.
Thank you, Abby. So today, what we're going to be talking about is why we chose Magnolia, the solution that we chose. We chose to implement it using React while keeping all the benefits of the in-page SEO goodness. But before we get into that, just wanted to give you some background on Hastings Direct. Hastings Direct was founded in 1997. Our headquarters are in Bexhill, in East Sussex on the sunny coast. We've currently got just over 3 million customers, and the colleagues are just over 3,000, spread between our Bexhill office, but also in London, Leicester, and Gibraltar. Hastings Direct sells car, home, bike, and van insurance, and we sell that directly through our website to direct customers, but we also use most of the major price comparison websites. Prior to implementing Magnolia, we have 4 different sites that were all managed without a CMS. They were all hard-coded, and it took developer resource to update basic content using HTML. So what we're looking to do is really build for a digital future. So we knew we wanted a CMS. We knew we wanted to use a single page application, i.e. React. We wanted a hybrid headless solution, and we wanted that solution to be based in the cloud. So why did we choose Magnolia? As I've mentioned already, we knew that we wanted to use React. We wanted to use the benefits of reusable single components. We're already using React elsewhere in the business on our quote journeys and our self-serve portal. Our self-serve portal is called My Account, and our quote journeys would be the same whether it was coming via direct from our website or through a price comparison website. So this is purely looking at now implementing that React solution, but within Magnolia CMS. We knew we wanted a hybrid headless solution for the flexibility, and we knew we wanted it to be cloud-based. Currently, our servers are all managed in-house or managed through a third-party server provider. So why did we choose Magnolia? Well, we chose Magnolia for a number of reasons, but not necessarily limited to just these. From what I've said so far, it met our criteria. The ease of use. The fact that content editors can actually preview the page in Magnolia that they're editing using the visual SPA editor before publishing, which is all part of that sort of hybrid headless solution. I mentioned before, we've got 4 sites, so we can manage all of our multi-sites through one Magnolia solution. We chose because of the support that Magnolia were offering and have continued to offer throughout our implementation. I mean, that's been fantastic. And also the support and experience of Precept. And obviously that's Abhay and Precept that are on the call with us today. And of course, price was a factor, and that definitely helped us sway our decision. And just the image that you're seeing in this slide is an image of the new content in the Magnolia editor using the Visual SPA before we publish it. They can see the content, they can see the layout, and that really helps them decide that they've got the right content in terms of approving and publishing.
Cool, thanks Darren, and thanks for saying kind words about working with Precept. Your check's in the post. Right, so this is what we've ended up with. This is the high-level architecture that we, Precept, designed collaboratively with Darren's team at Hastings, and then implementation was shared between parties, with the Hastings IT department heavily involved, where they're hosting infrastructure and looking after infrastructure. We certainly needed their help, and they gave it to us kindly. Precept were asked to support Hastings with the solution design, to help with planning the project, and ultimately to provide resources to help Darren's team with the Magnolia development. So, a bit of resource augmentation, and that work was mainly around development of the React-based templates and also helping to configure Magnolia. So our requirements were to use Jenkins, because that was already heavily being used by Hastings and by the IT department in terms of their deployment pipelines for other systems outside even of the digital. So we needed to use Jenkins, and then we needed to host the head of the application, initially on-premise, and then to move it to Microsoft Azure, which also matched the strategy that Hastings is currently going through, moving off of on-premise onto Azure. Other than that, we were free as a team, collaborative, Darren's team and my team, to help to pick the technologies we were comfortable with, and then that we felt would be the best match for the requirements. So we set to work, and the intention of the design was to build a highly decoupled architecture where you could effectively swap out any of the components with alternative software products if we needed to do that at some point in the future. And we always intend to follow best practice, and we certainly did on this project in terms of Magnolia best practice and also application architecture best practice, with the idea being to design a solution that was scalable, secure, robust and cost efficient. So if we have a look at this diagram that's on your screen now, I hope, unless something dramatically has gone wrong, we have on the left the code layer, which includes the CMS template code that's deployed as light modules to Magnolia, and we're using Git for source control, and we're using Jenkins for automated builds and deployments, so for CI/CD pipelines. And then moving along, Magnolia is the core for headless content delivery. We use the Magnolia REST APIs to deliver content to the SPA, to the single page application, which I mentioned was developed in React for this project. And but we could equally deliver this content anywhere that we need to any other Hastings systems, whether that be mobile apps, kiosks, desktop systems, wherever we need to get that content, we can do that because we're using Magnolia. And then next along, we've got this web UI layer, which is essentially the head of the application. Darren mentioned the requirements for SEO necessitating that we need to statically generate the site. So just to explain a bit about static site generation, in a CMS context, it's the process of kind of crawling a site and saving all the rendered content and page templates as a set of static HTML files, along with their supporting CSS and JavaScript. So normally when you request a page from a CMS, the server has to retrieve data and merge it with the CMS templates, and then it will need to render it to the client browser as HTML, and then the page loads. So we're getting rid of the server-side processing, essentially. So then you end up with a what I'd call an undynamic site that can be loaded directly in client browsers. And in this project, we could use static site generation because the sites are effectively online brochures, or brochureware, if you like. The project internally at Hastings was called the Brochureware Project. And of course, Hastings do have other more complex web applications. They have what they refer to as the quote and buy journey for insurance products. And these systems are earmarked for integration with Magnolia, but at these initial stages, we were just onboarding the brochure sites. So to help with static site generation, we selected Next.js, and we used it to basically pre-render our sites. And Next is triggered on a schedule by Jenkins to automatically build the static version of the site if there have been any changes. It runs a command that basically outputs the whole site to a directory on the server, and then Jenkins again deploys it to the front-end infrastructure, and the whole process completes in a matter of seconds. So that brings us on to the cloud infrastructure section. The web application that's delivered to customers is actually hosted on blob storage on Microsoft Azure Blob Storage, which is the Azure equivalent of Amazon S3, if you're more familiar with AWS. And it's pretty nice because then we can cache the site in a CDN and deliver content really quickly to people via edge servers. So edge servers that are located to Hastings customers. So if you're in London, then hopefully you'll get a data center that's in London rather than in Australia, and that makes the site a lot quicker. And it also adds a lot of redundancy possibilities because the site is replicated across geographic regions. So one region's down, another region will certainly be up. And of course, because it's just a storage service, there's no infrastructure for us to manage. We're not responsible for load balancers or server patching or intrusion detection. We're just using another SaaS service for web application hosting. So using Magnolia Cloud essentially as a SaaS service for delivering content, and we're also using Azure for web application hosting as a SaaS service. And the other nice thing is that the availability of dependent components has become a kind of marginalized concern in this architecture in terms of the continued availability of the site. If Jenkins or Magnolia or Next.js are down, it won't affect the Hastings site, which will still be being served by the Azure CDN. Of course, you can't deploy new content without those services, so we still need to go back and fix them. But in the meantime, the sites will still be running. So that gives us time. So that's the high level overview. As I mentioned, the way we have set this up means that any layer in this diagram can be replaced if we need to. We can change the way we do development, change our build processes and servers. We can change the head of the application and where it's hosted. And we can even swap out the CMS if we want to, or more likely we can augment it with additional data sources, whatever they might be. It could be external databases, other Hastings systems, other content management systems, anything really. We can swap that or bring that into that layer and then deliver that out to the Hastings front end sites. So what we've developed is an extremely flexible and future-proofed architecture, and that is in large part possible because we're using Magnolia Cloud, which gives us the fully headless option, and it lends itself to being part of a wider technology ecosystem.
Thanks, Abhay. That was really good. Thank you very much. So Abhay's touched upon it, and I mentioned it earlier, but one of the issues that we found with using React as a single page application, which is React kind of the solution out of the box, is that we lost that the SEO benefit of the page and the site. And as I mentioned before, the area that I'm responsible for on the website is our brochureware, as we call it, but the front shop window. That's where our clients first arrive. So that SEO benefit for us was 100% critical. To our business, we couldn't lose those SEO benefits. So therefore, as Abby's just mentioned in that diagram, we opted to use Next.js as our static site generator to keep that SEO goodness. There are other site generators out there, and you may be aware of others, but we chose Next.js because it met our needs. It was easy to set up, and we already had kind of in-house skill sets to use Next.js, which enabled us to keep the benefits of all the SEO goodness, the page titles, the meta description, and so on and so forth. So just to repeat on this point, the benefits for us of using Magnolia was the fact that we could use the multi-sites, the ease of setup, and the deployment process. The fact that content editors can preview the page in the Magnolia environment before publishing it was huge for us. And what we've set up, going back to the ease of setup and the deployment process, within Magnolia, we've got 3 environments. We've got an integration environment, and we've set up an automatic build to go from the Magnolia integration environment, and that deploys directly into our dev environment, into our test environment. We have a Magnolia UAT environment, and we built an automated build process that deploys straight to our pre-production servers. And then finally, we've got a live Magnolia environment, and that as an automated build process to our live site. And as Abhay mentioned earlier, and I think I mentioned at the very beginning, the CMS at the moment is just for our brochureware site. It's the static pages. It's the pages that people land on when they first come to our site. we do have a quote and buy journey that then once they land on our site and they click on, buy a car, buy van, buy home insurance, will take them into a very dynamic quote journey. That's already built using React. And we also have a self-service portal called My Account. That's built using React. But at the moment, the management of the content within that quote and buy journey and within the self-serve portal is still very much a manual process, very much how our brochureware was before. So what we're able to do with the Magnolia solution that we've got, whilst at the moment it's purely for our brochureware site, what we are able to do is to start thinking about integrating the quote and buy journey, the My Account self-serve portal into the Magnolia CMS, so that that's no longer hard coded. We can still use the same React components. We've still got the same ease of build and deployment process, but we now have the option to manage that content within the Magnolia CMS. And the goodness that a content editor, I go back to it because it's massive for us, that as the content editors are making content changes, they can preview those in the Visual SPA editor. They can see the page as it will be rendered on the site before they approve and publish it. And that is all I had to say on that. I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. I would like to thank you very much for listening. Both myself and Abhay will be in the chat room after this. Very much look forward to receiving any technical questions you have, and hopefully between myself and Abhay, we should be able to answer any that you have. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks everyone for listening, and I look forward to speaking to some of you in the breakout room in a bit. Cheers.